So Umeko is one of the other characters that we received at the start of the season alongside Estella. She was featured on Estella's banner, however, a lot of people were also able to get Umeko from the standard banner as a random drop. And she is another character who holds a scout rifle and a sniper rifle in the exact same way as Tan2. In fact, in a lot of ways, she will be similar to Tan2 in the fact that she has some really high single target damage and some good team support with her damage increasing debuffs that will also help the entire team. So I'll be going over Umeko's kit and some ways that you can get the most out of her with her builds, weapon choices, and playstyle. So, starting out with her kit, her main passive is going to be Shadows Absorbed, which states that when Umeko deals weapon damage or weapon mastery damage, she absorbs shadow energy based on the damage dealt. Efficiency is increased when using a scout rifle. When combatants inflicted with Shadow's Curse are defeated, Umeko will absorb additional shadow energy. When shadow energy reaches a max of 100 and Shadow Shuriken charges aren't full, Umeko will consume all shadow energy to gain 1 charge of Shadow Shuriken. So that means if you have a max bar of shadow energy with all of your shurikens, you will instantly gain another charge of your shurikens upon using one and lose all of your shadow energy as it will be consumed. Additionally, while in the Void Step state, Umeko will absorb shadow energy with 25% greater efficiency. When shadow energy overflows, a portion of it will be converted into recharge for Void Step up to 25% per instance. So, going on to her abilities, her first ability, which is her signature, is going to be the aforementioned Shadow Shurikens. And this states that Umeko will throw a shuriken up to 70 meters forward over penetrating targets and slicing combatants within a 2-meter radius. Hit combatants are inflicted with 1 stack of Shadow's Curse for 8 seconds and take a 340 void damage. So this won't really do much damage at all. However, the main focus is obviously the Shadow's Curse. When Shadow Shuriken deals damage to a combatant with at least 3 stacks of Shadow's Curse, it also deals 340 void damage to all other targets inflicted with Shadow's Curse within a 20-meter radius. If the shuriken hits terrain or other objects, it will ricochet up to 1 time, but its max flight distance will remain unchanged, and she starts with 3 charges. Its effectiveness will be increased by her traits or talents, which I have her currently at talent level 3, and I'll go over the talents later. But talking about the Shadow's Curse debuff, it states that combatants take increased damage from the fire team equal to 7.73, and this will increase with the Shadow Shuriken's level. So if I can't really showcase the level up yet because I don't have it at a higher level, but do keep in mind this will increase per level. The maximum number of stacks that Shadow Shuriken can apply is increased to 3, and the maximum number stacks that Singularity Shuriken can apply is increased to 4. When Shadow's Curse reaches 2 stacks or more, afflicted combatants are slowed by 50%. When it reaches 3 or more, they will become confined, which means they cannot move at all. Her other ability, which was mentioned in her passive, is Void Step, which will be a dash skill, and it will activate a Void Healing ability while in the Void Step state. And Void Step will instantly grant Umeko invisibility and gain 40% acceleration. Using weapons or abilities removes invisibility, but if Umeko still is in the Void Step state, she will return to invisibility after 1 second, so long as she's not firing or using her abilities. When Umeko is in the array, she gains Void Healing, restoring 92 health per second, and this will increase as you level up the skill. Allies who touch the array will also gain Void Healing, but they recover 30% of what Umeko herself recovers. Void Healing lasts for as long as the array does. While the array is active, dealing damage or being in the Void Step invisibility state stores energy to increase Void Healing's healing efficiency up to a maximum of 600%. Entering the Void Step state randomly generates 1 Tangled Void on the weak spots of 1 random combatant within the attack's range, prioritizing those within Umeko's line of sight for 2 seconds. So when entering the Void Step, you will get one of these Tangled Voids, but if we take a look at what the Tangled Void does, weapon hits can break the Tangled Void, causing afflicted targets to take precision damage. Breaking Tangled Void instantly increases the healing efficiency of Umeko's own Void Healing to its maximum and makes her invisible. Shadow Shuriken hits can also break Tangled Void. So, being aggressive with the Void Step ability and hitting that target and breaking it will also help you with the healing for yourself and your allies. Moving on to her super, this is a 120 second cooldown, so it's a long cooldown super, 2 minutes. And it states that Umeko throws a super enhanced shuriken up to 70 meters forward. The enhanced shuriken will overpenetrate targets and slash combatants within a 4-meter radius, dealing a decent amount of void damage and inflicting 4 stacks of Shadow's Curse at once, lasting 15 seconds. And when the shuriken is in mid-flight, it will tear through space itself, pulling in combatants within a 4-meter radius after a brief delay and dealing a much larger burst of void damage. And this damage additionally increases by 10% per combatant hit for a maximum increase of 50%. If the shuriken hits terrain or other objects, it will ricochet 1 time, but the max flight distance will remain unchanged. Now moving on to the relic talents. So first off is Unrelenting Malice. When Shadow Shuriken hits 2 combatants, Umeko will absorb an additional 5 shadow energy. When it hits 3 combatants or more, she will absorb an additional 5 shadow energy. Then her Relic Trait 2, Void Crossover, states that when ally comes into contact with the Void Healing Ray, they will gain Void Step, and we saw this effect here in the signature as well. So this will be very good for her team support, especially providing speed support to her allies. And finally, Soul Salvation. When elite or stronger combatants are defeated while infected with Umeko's own Shadow's Curse, they will generate 1 Redeeming Light. And this Redeeming Light tracks the ally with the lowest health within a 70-meter radius and heals for 92 health per second, and this will also scale with Void Step's level for 3 seconds, and the healing effect is stackable. So Umeko is largely going to be a more aggressive, focused healer. She won't be as good at pure healing as Tantu or Atal will. However, she does have those other advantages, like the debuffs, like the confinement, and like the speed support and invisibility. Finally, we get to the weapon mastery, and this is Weakness Perceived. When Umeko's shots hit combatants weakened by her Shadow's Curse, they deal an additional instance of void damage equal to 15% of the shot's damage. And this will work with any amount of void stacks, even 1. And at level 4, it states that when a combatant's Shadow's Curse stacks reaches 3 or more, a Resentful Entanglement will be generated on their weak spot and lasts until Shadow Curse expires. It states that weapon hits can break the Spite Entanglement and deal precision damage to effective targets. Breaking Spite Entanglement also deals void damage to all combatants with Shadow's Curse within a 20-meter radius, equal to 20% of weapon hit damage. So this is a way for Umeko to spread out her single target damage among multiple targets, so long as you're able to hit her debuffs on those crowds, and with the overpenetration and the ricochet, that will be a lot easier for you to do, especially in tight corridors. Moving on to her weapon choices, the best scout rifle for her by far is going to be the Total Lockdown Scout Rifle. It's the same exact way for Tantu, and it's the same exact way for her. For the first column perks, they largely won't matter as much so long as you have Allocation Vector. Allocation Vector, above all else, this perk is one of the best perks in the entire game, and will make this scout rifle perform significantly better than all of the other options. You can use Bullseye Rebate for some extra ammo reloading by hitting precision hits, which you should be doing, or Fraternity for extra damage and also some extra reload speed. As for sniper rifles, the Magoichi and the Sidereal Year are going to be largely equivalent in terms of DPS and total damage. The Sidereal Year may be able to do slightly more with a God roll, however, the Magoichi is going to be better with a less than God roll. For the Magoichi, you're going to want Pranayama as the main perk in column 2, Pranayama over all else. Beyond that, you want Statue's Heart for increasing the total, or for increasing the DPS, and Triple Tap for giving some extra total damage. For the Sidereal Year, you're going to want Searing Mark plus Fraternity. None of the other perks are going to give you much better damage increases. And for the Sidereal Year, especially with the Searing Mark trait, something very important that you're going to want to get is a magazine increase. Now, when it comes to the Magoichi, you will not want a magazine increase outside of Triple Tap, because with the Pranayama perk, it will only proc for every 4 shots, or every 3 shots. So, if you do not have Triple Tap, you will not want a magazine increase because you'll have 5 bullets in the magazine, and you'll have to reload anyway in order to reactivate Pranayama, otherwise you will be wasting ammo. When it comes to the exotic options, we still have yet to do some really good testing, but the mythic options are vastly outperforming the exotic options at low investment. And by low investment, I mean the first and even second catalyst bans for the Borealis and the Izanagi's Burden. Though I will say, with Umeko's enhanced reload speed while in her Void Step state, which is not mentioned in her kit, but it is an effect that she gets, she will be able to vastly increase the Izanagi's Burden DPS. However, the total damage of Izanagi's Burden will still be lower than the Magoichi at lower refinements, at least from the reports and testings that I've received from my trusted friends. I don't have access to Polaris Lance, however, I do believe Polaris Lance would be slightly better for DPS, or primary DPS, than the Total Lockdown Scout Rifle, especially at higher advancements. However, something that I'm not sure that the Polaris Lance will be able to do, that the Total Lockdown is able to do, is stun rapid-fire Shinkas effectively, because with the allocation vector perk, or this allows this scout rifle to stun Sheikah servitors at a very quick rate. So as you can see here with the reload cancels, it is able to stun it in under 5 seconds. This is faster than an auto rifle without perfect perks. So that is very, very much a good reason to run the Total Lockdown Scout Rifle over other options, including exotic options. Now, when it comes to artifacts, she's going to want the same kinds of artifacts in a similar way to Tantu, at least for the damaging artifacts. If we take a look at the spreadsheet right here for my artifact recommendations, Calming Token is going to be the best for DPS and total damage. Inverted Fury is going to be better for passive, but if you're able to stand still, especially during the DPS phase, Calming Token is going to be the best option for Umeko. The Bellicose Planetesimal is going to be a very consistent option. However, Illuminated Ground, it will give you slightly increased damage compared to the Bellicose, though it's not as much of a difference between Inverted Fury and Calming Token. Beyond that, I am recommending you use a damage resistance combo with Unrelenting Ground or Unrelenting Subgravity. Unrelenting Ground will combo very well with Calming Token, because you'll be standing still a lot and reproccing the damage resistance effect, and therefore constantly giving you stacks on Unrelenting Evolution, which will give you even more damage resistance, which is very important for characters like Umeko. If we take a look at the Ring of Conversion right here, and the perk level is going to remain the exact same at perk level 4, with her Void Step healing, it is going to be a very, very slim amount of passive healing that you will receive for the whole Void Step duration. It's going to only give you about that much, though you will be able to increase it if you are able to hit those special points. And obviously we can see right here, it's going to greatly increase the amount of healing that you receive, but again, you still will have lower uptime on it in comparison to another character like Tantu, who will be able to have infinite uptime on the Overshield gain. But with this, you'll be losing out on the massive DR gains from the artifact, which I feel like, because of Umeko's more limited healing in comparison to Tantu, she will benefit from a lot more than the Ring of Conversion. However, the Ring of Conversion is a popular option, so it does bear mentioning. Now, when it comes to Umeko's playstyle, you are going to want to be attacking the larger enemies, and oftentimes even the smaller enemies, by first hitting them with your shurikens, and this you will see the first debuff on them, and I'll be dealing greatly increased damage from both the debuff and the weapon mastery, and you can reapply it as well, and the reapplication will also reset the cooldown, so if you're attacking a tankier target, you can stagger your void shuriken throws, and you can also shoot it again. And keeping uptime on them will be very important for your damage, especially when you are using your sniper rifle. Now, I did mention this before, but the Void Step will give you a vastly increased reload speed. And by vastly, I mean real vastly. So this is going to be the standard reload speed for the Scout Rifle without a reload cancel. And if I go into the Void Step, you can see it's almost instant. It is so incredibly fast, and you can just keep doing that through the entire Void Step state. So a damage rotation on Umeko would likely be something like throwing your super out, and this will give you the maximum stacks of your weapon mastery, and then you would likely start by dealing some damage, but obviously the Void Step will give you that greatly increased initial damage and the greatly increased reload speed, and especially against a boss like Isakis, you wouldn't have to worry about missing your shots by hip firing. You can also still reload cancel while in the Void Step, however, the timing is going to be a lot tighter, and if you want to hit the perfect reload cancels, or because of the greatly increased speed. But obviously, you would just want to start off your damage rotation by using your super, and you won't be able to refresh the debuff timer with your normal shurikens. So once that timer runs out for the weapon mastery, you will be reduced to nothing. However, it should last for the entire damage phase, and we can time it right here, and we can see that timer going down. I believe it will last close to 15 seconds, or exactly 15 seconds, the exact same as Tantu's well, so it will be more than enough for a damage phase. It's lasting slightly longer due to Umeko's inherent, because Umeko's inherent Light Link will increase the duration of all debuffs applied by her abilities, so increasing her talent level will also increase the duration of her debuffs, though it won't be extremely necessary, or especially when we're dealing with the later levels of those talents, as the increases will be diminishing. But again, I can show off some, or what a damage rotation would look like. Obviously, you'd want to start on your sniper rifle, you'd hit with your super, and then it would just be hitting it, and obviously you'd want to be hitting the crit spots. And I'm gonna miss some shots because it's not like Isakis, who has like a giant hitbox, but that essentially would be what you'd want to do. Obviously, you're going to want to be hitting all crits. This guy is not really the best because he's going to move around and he has a smaller hitbox than Isakis, but you wouldn't really need to worry about doing a full DPS rotation on enemies outside of that. And obviously, in a DPS scenario, you'll have access to Tantu as well. But for enemies outside of that, because Umeko will be good in strikes and often a lot better than Tantu in strikes, you can line up your shuriken shots to hit multiple enemies. And because of her passives like her weapon mastery, you can see that right there I can break the resentful entanglements, and they're increasing the damage or dealing damage to all of the debuffed targets. So if there's necessarily like multiple enemies, you can debuff them all, and then you can hit each one with that, and it'll deal the extra damage to all the units. So if you're able to line up all of your shuriken hits, or even able to spread out some of your shuriken hits across to other enemies, and you attack one big enemy, especially with a really high single damaging hit, such as through Izanagi's Burden, you'll be able to deal massive damage to that one enemy, and that damage will then be shared by all of the enemies who are also cursed. If I had Izanagi's Burden, I would showcase it right there. So Umeko definitely has some really good options for her. Additionally, when you are at low HP, or when you need to reposition, you can use the Void Step to maneuver, and it'll give you constant healing, and you'll also get that increased movement speed, and enemies will not target you while you are invisible. And obviously, due to her very long cooldown, you are going to want to save her super for high value targets, and this will include Shinkas, and especially multiple Shinkas, and large groups of really tough enemies in a strike, and obviously boss enemies in raid encounters like Isakis. Now, moving on to her talent tree, this is going to be the last section here. The first two talents are going to be significantly easier to get through than every subsequent talent, because they will only require one extra copy of Umeko each. The 3 and 4 will require 2, and 5 and 6 will require 3. So starting out, Void Step will gain a second tier effect. Using it to dash again within 6 seconds grants Umeko invisibility and restores health. Now, this does bear mentioning because of the Ring of Conversion. Ring of Conversion will not give you overshield from healing that is sourced from talents. Talents are counted as separate from the abilities, and therefore will not proc the Ring of Conversion, and this is consistent with multiple characters. But we can see right here, the base effects will be active, and you'll see another ability activation right there, and if I do that, I'll go again, and it'll give me the extra healing, and will also push Umeko forward once more. And next, her talent tree 2, upon inflicting 3 stacks of Shadow's Curse or more, Umeko's next shot will deal 50% additional damage and inflict the nearest target within 20 meters with 1 stack of Shadow's Curse for 8 seconds. So this is another talent that will greatly increase her performance with a weapon such as Izanagi's Burden. And funnily enough, this is making Umeko a much better user of Izanagi's Burden compared to Tantu. especially with her reload increasing buffs. So, even though Izanagi's burden currently is being outperformed by mythic options on Tan2, because of these extra advantages that Umeko gains, Izanagi's burden will be a much better option for her, especially in non-DPS scenarios. Her talent 3 states that Shadow Shuriken can now ricochet up to 2 times, and all of its damage delta is increased by 50%. It will definitely help her in more confined spaces, but the damage increase largely isn't going to help her that much. They deal so little damage that it's not going to really benefit her much at all, but the extra ricochets may help her in applying against more targets. Her 4th talent will increase the direct damage of Singularity Shuriken, and again, this is going to be a less useful talent because her Singularity Shuriken is not going to be a giant source of her own damage. Much like Wolf, she is very, very much weapon focused and not ability damage focused. So her 5th talent, Soul Rip, Soul Salvation now generates 2 Redeeming Lights, and the healing effect is increased by 100%. This is going to be a nice benefit for her aggressive healing and team support. And finally, we have Gaze into the Abyss. Umeko's next Shadow Shuriken will be enhanced once every 60 seconds, increasing its radius by 100% and letting it inflict 3 stacks of Shadow's Curse at once for 8 seconds, granting it a vertical pull effect. And what this essentially means is that Umeko will get a miniature super every 60 seconds, and this will greatly enhance her performance in activities like Calamity Ops and the Expanse. However, it will not nearly be as necessary or for raid DPS scenarios, though I'm sure it will still benefit. So Umeko's talents largely aren't necessary. If I had to say one talent that you should really go for, it would likely be talent 2, because that will give you that great increase of damage, especially if you're using a weapon like Izanagi's Burden. But beyond that, talent 3, 4, and 5 largely won't be a massive increase to Umeko's own performance outside of leveling up her Light Link. And the final talent will be an excellent one if you're able to obtain it. Overall, Umeko is definitely among the top tiers in the game, especially because, like Tan2, she will have team support and therefore will always be useful for DPS scenarios because of her stacking damage debuff and access to top tier damage dealing weapons like sniper rifles. I wouldn't necessarily state that she is better than Tan2 because they will largely have different purposes and different strengths, but she does have many advantages that Tan2 lacks, especially when we're talking about certain exotics like Izanagi's Burden. Overall, I think very highly of this character and her viability, especially with her own versatility, being useful in a wide variety of content, and because of the Allocation Vector Scout Rifle, she will be able to stun multiple Shinka types. So that will also be another thing benefiting her for endgame viability. With that all out of the way, thank you all so much for watching. If you're enjoying my coverage of Destiny Rising and would like to see more guides, builds, and news in the future, be sure to subscribe to my channel to keep up to date on all things regarding Destiny Rising. I would like to hear your thoughts about Umeko in the comments below, whether you think that she is actually better than Tan2, or if you think that Izanagi's Burden is the absolute best option and you should not use anything else on her. Please share your thoughts in those comments. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.